Let's dive right in today and completely re examine something you probably think you already understand. We're shifting our lens. We aren't just looking at dark chocolate as some simple, everyday treat anymore. We are looking at a highly complex, pharmacologically active matrix. We're not just talking about food, we're literally decoding a biological delivery system. Think about it. When you're under immense pressure, why does your brain instinctively crave chocolate? Well, we're going to investigate that immediate symptom of craving. And we're not going to look at it as a psychological weakness or some lack of willpower. It's actually a direct biological signal. It's a subconscious attempt by your nervous system to self-medicate and regulate its own survival mechanisms. To figure this out, we actually need to look at what's called the bliss molecule, anandamide. The name literally comes from the Sanskrit word for bliss, and it's an endocannabinoid produced naturally by your own brain. And what's incredibly fascinating here is that it binds to the exact same receptors as THC, inducing a state of calm, diminishing fear, and actively promoting emotional recovery. So here is our system diagnostics checklist for today's explainer. We'll start with the pharmacological matrix, then move to hacking the bliss molecule, buffering the HPA axis, the gut-brain connection, the sleep paradox, and finally, the biological operating manual. We're going to track exactly how the compounds in cacao cross the blood-brain barrier, modulate your stress hormones, alter your gut microbiome, and ultimately give you a precision protocol for human performance. All right, Section 1, the pharmacological matrix. It's vastly more than a comfort food. Let's reframe how we view the fermented seed of the cacao tree. Just wrap your head around the sheer density of this matrix. That number, 300, represents the over 300 known chemical compounds packed into chocolate. We are talking about an intensely dense concentration of flavonoids, methylxanthines, and essential minerals. And they don't just sit in your stomach. They actually cross the blood-brain barrier and interact synergistically with your central nervous system to fundamentally alter your brain chemistry. Moving into Section 2, hacking the bliss molecule and the endocannabinoid system. This brings us to our first real hidden mechanism, showing how chocolate effectively hacks your brain's reward centers. The crucial takeaway is really right there in step 3. See, while chocolate does contain trace amounts of anandamide, its true pharmacological power actually comes from structural compounds called OEA and LEA. Basically, your brain naturally produces anandamide to calm you down, right? But then an enzyme called FAH comes along and quickly destroys it. Well, the compounds in dark chocolate act as FAH inhibitors. They literally block the enzyme that destroys your natural bliss molecule, artificially prolonging your body's own calming signals. It is quite literally a biological cheat code. That takes us to Section 3, buffering the HPA axis through autonomic stabilization. We're transitioning now from just mood regulation to systemic stress. If we look deeper, beneath that initial feeling of calm, we find that cocoa flavonoids act as an invisible shield at the cellular level. They aren't just making you feel good. They actually physiologically inhibit a specific enzyme, 11-beta-HSD1, which is the exact enzyme responsible for converting inactive cortisone into the highly active stress hormone, cortisol. You are structurally lowering your entire cellular stress load. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world consequence of that. In clinical arithmetic stress tests, subjects were put under intense cognitive pressure. Just a tiny 10-gram dose of dark chocolate completely buffered the autonomic nervous system, keeping their heart rate variability remarkably stable. Meanwhile, as you can see, the control group completely spiraled into a state of high sympathetic fight-or-flight dominance. Let's move to Section 4, the gut-brain connection and microbial metabolism. We're going to expose a much larger pattern here by looking at a bidirectional communication pathway in your body. When researchers ran a 14-day trial, the results were honestly mind-blowing. They found that consuming 40 grams of dark chocolate every day didn't just alter people's moods. It physically altered the host's energy metabolism and profoundly shifted the gut microbiota. It literally changed the microbial activity in their digestive tracts to fundamentally reduce systemic stress signatures across the entire body. And here is why this matters so immensely. A staggering 90% of your body's serotonin, that is the key neurotransmitter responsible for your emotional resilience and your baseline happiness, is manufactured not in your brain, but right there in your gut. So by nourishing the gut microbiome with cacao polyphenols, you are actively fortifying the very factory that produces your emotional stability. But, every biological intervention has a hidden consequence. That brings us to Section 5, the sleep paradox and the chronobiology of cacao. You essentially have this intense biological tug of war happening inside you if you consume this matrix at night. On one side, you have relaxants like magnesium trying their hardest to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. But on the other side, you've got these powerful methylxanthines, theobromine, and caffeine. And they act as potent adenosine blockers, actively suppressing your brain's natural sleep signals and significantly delaying sleep onset. You really have to treat the half-life of these compounds like an invisible ticking clock. Say you consume 70% dark chocolate at 8 p.m. as a nice dessert. Well, you're hitting peak stimulant levels in your blood at 10 p.m. By 1 a.m., fully half of that caffeine is still completely active in your bloodstream, and it takes all the way until 6 a.m. for the theobromine to finally clear your system. It is secretly fragmenting your deep cellular recovery well into the early morning hours, often without you even realizing it's happening. So, let's put it all together in Section 6, the Biological Operating Manual and our precision protocols. Having decoded all these hidden mechanisms, we can now consolidate this into a highly actionable user manual. First up, dosage. If you want to achieve the pharmacological benefits for stress mitigation, neuroprotection, and cognitive blood flow without taking on an excessive caloric or stimulant load, the clinically observed optimal dosage is strictly between 10 and 40 grams daily. Precision is key here. More is definitely not better. Now, we absolutely have to address the environmental reality, because recent consumer reports revealed some pretty dangerous heavy metals in many popular chocolate bars. Your cheat code for safety means you have to select rigorously tested brands. Companies like Mast, Taza, Ghirardelli, and Valrhona have actually been verified to have low or completely safe levels of lead and cadmium. You have to curate your source. So here are the exact rules for your biological operating manual. Make sure you source a minimum of 70% cacao from those safe brands we just mentioned. Dose it strictly between 10 and 40 grams, and do it in the morning or early afternoon. That perfectly aligns with your natural waking cortisol rhythm. And most importantly, protect your sleep architecture. Impose a hard cutoff 4 to 6 hours before you go to bed. Oh, and if you pair it with a protein or a healthy fat, you can further stabilize your blood sugar by slowing down the absorption of the entire matrix. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought. Something I hope fundamentally changes how you view your own environment and biology. We've just seen how specific compounds in one simple fermented seed can literally block stress enzymes, artificially prolong your bliss molecules, and completely rewrite your physiological stress response. So you have to ask yourself, if this is what a single seed can do to your internal operating system, what other invisible forces in your daily life are just sitting there waiting to be decoded? Keep questioning everything, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.